Good evening, everyone. Gareth Presh, founder of the World Health Innovation Summit, streaming live from Carlisle, Cumbria this evening. And I'm joined this evening by the Rev Dr Julian Hamilton, who's in Dublin, who's going to talk about the Good Summit this evening. Jules, as you're called, shall I say, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and give us a bit of an introduction? We're really looking forward to this conversation. We're going to focus on purpose, sustainable development goals, Dublin, Good Summit, Australia, Africa, and what you see as impact in the future.
Well, first of all, thanks, Gareth. Thank you for the invitation to come and have a wee chat on a Sunday night. I feel like I should have a little G&T, a glass of wine, or at least a coffee with me, but all of those would keep me awake. So I'll leave them all to the side. I'm not actually in Dublin at the minute. The lockdown has sent me north to my parents. I'm in Bangor County down Northern Ireland at the minute, which hunkering down, trying to keep my elderly parents as safe as possible, and it's been a joy actually. My father just turned 91. My mother is in her and they live very close to the sea, so the sea has kept me sane over these last few months. Dublin Trinity College is where I work for most of my life. Is spent in Trinity College. And then the bit of my year that I have left outside of semester, I devote to at the minute as a kind of standing CEO for the Good Summit, which really just want me to tell you how we started. My friend Amber and I,
it would be great to just go into the how did the Good Summit come about. Tell our listeners, tell people who are viewing. Also, anyone who's joining us to have a question for Jules, please do put it in the chat line. And also let us know where you're coming in from this evening. If you're from Europe or Africa or America, let us know. And any questions you have, we'll do our best to answer them. So please, Jules, tell us the Good Summit story.
And I will absolutely send all questions to you, Gareth, because you're much more skilled and intelligent. My partner, co-founder of the Good Summit, is Amr Dawood, and he's currently in Egypt. He might be listening in. Tell us if you are, Amr. And several years ago, he burst into my office. So I'm a chaplain in Trinity College Dublin, one of 4 chaplains. And Amr, at that point, was representing the Muslim Society in college. And he came in, 2 of them burst into the office, and he's a larger-than-life character. And he talked about looking for help from the chaplains for an auction at Eid. And being a Christian chaplain, having the Muslim Association come and ask for a kind of assistance, I was only too willing to really quickly say, yeah, what can we do? How can I be of use? And that really started a friendship. So many years ago now, it's probably eight years ago at this point. And so Amr and I began to do some stuff together over the years and get to know each other better. I do some kind of peace work in the Middle East, some human engagement processes for peace, really. And Amr was involved in helping or attending the first kind of those 5 or 6 years ago now, that would be. And whenever in 2015, whenever the horrific terrorist attacks took place in Paris, the Bataclan attacks, Amr and I both, we didn't know this would happen. We didn't know until the same day. But the Students' Union in Trinity approached us both and asked, would we address a peace vigil for students at Trinity? So it was late autumn. It was dark time of the year, and at 5 o'clock one afternoon, Amr and I had the honour, really, of being invited to address this peace vigil and this peace gathering. And I suppose as we both did that, as we both came from a very different perspectives, we both came with what was very obviously a desire to see the world be different and a desire to see the world work better. And so I looked out, and there must have been about 500 students in Front Square with candles. And you've been there, Gareth. You know what Trinity College is like. This old, ancient college with students on these kind of cobblestone Front Square, lighting candles into the darkness to say, we can bring light. We can do something. Might not be everything that we want to do, but at least we can do something. And at the end of that, I think I just turned to Amber and said, mate, we got to do something. And that was really where the Good Summit was born. His love of social enterprise and social responsibility my love of gatherings and what happens whenever you can get people together physically into the same space. Those two kind of things merged into what became the Good Summit.
Yeah, fantastic story. And I remember
I could talk, I just thought better take a breath and let you, because you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I was just going to say, we met, I think it was 3 years ago in a Dublin cafe. We had an early breakfast and we started discussing the Good Summit, and you told me about the plans and I told you about what we were doing with the WHIS and our journey. And then we were talking about the opportunities for Dublin, particularly to grasp, the kind of the opportunity for a kind of summit. And I remember how it's grown, and then we had the first session, and I'll never forget. You had the Trinitons, was it the
Trinitons?
Yeah, they opened your first session, which was just amazing, and then you had Bertie Ahern, and we had the session there, and you've had some really high profile speakers as well, and you've got Mary McAleese coming to this year's event.
Delighted
and tell me that. Just because what's the purpose of the Good Summit? Like, you have it on the website. It's like, from your perspective, man, Mayor, it's like, what is it? It's that social change. It's that platform for connection.
It's so my passion is really about social connection and positive social transformation, and really we're trying to create a better shared future through any way that we can. So through social enterprise, through community engagement, community innovation, corporate responsibility, education. Trinity as an institution, 400 years of an institution, but we partner with Trinity in this because they're so helpful and supportive, and they get it. And so the education piece has become really important for us, which obviously fits in with the SDGs. How working with you and learning about health and wellness, in local communities as well as globally, hearing the best of what's happening around the globe, who is doing what to positively transform, to bring peace and positive social transformation. So for me, the key phrase in the Good Summit is positive social transformation. How can we celebrate what's happening, tell about it, tell more about it, and then encourage people to pick up their bit of it wherever it's happening, actually, because that's the heartbeat of it. We've had a real challenge this year because we're looking to go again at the end of October. And there's probably going to be some social distancing that's still going to be in place. And the medical and the science field, I'm sure even from people listening tonight, we could get 24 different opinions on best scientific and best practice ways forward that are all different. But we're probably going to have to deal with some sort of social distancing in Ireland in October. So we had planned, we had 200 at the first summit. 2 years ago we had 400, so we doubled it last year. We also had the first Good Summit Australia last year. Amar ran an event connected to the Good Summit in Egypt last year. And so we really had high hopes that we'd be back in Australia this year. We would have over 1,000 people in Dublin. And now we're thinking we might only be able to use a space where we're allowed 200 people into it. So we're doing a hybrid event. We couldn't put everything online. We could not bring ourselves to do that because a core value for us is relationships, and we could not comprehend what it would mean for us on our value base to put everything online. So we will be doing more things like this. We'll have some interviews that are set up, and we will release everything over the couple of days of the summit. But as you said, we'll still have the likes of Mary McAleese coming to meet with us and to sit with us, and maybe we can only have 100 people in the room with her. But maybe instead of the 1,000 that we wanted, maybe we can get 10,000 globally.
Yes.
Maybe actually this is an opportunity where we get to do things in a way that surpasses what we had thought possible. So did that answer your question? I've forgotten what the question was.
I wanted to touch on the impact, because you touched on it there. You had an event in Egypt, which is just fantastic, and Australia as well. So for those listening in, I'm sure they'll be watching this on a replay in Australia. I mean, tell us about your journey as a story. What have you seen as shall we say, as positive change? Because you're networking with all these people. Have you got some good examples to share with us? Because some of these small examples are big impact.
Do you know what so I'm I'm a preacher man. Most of my life is taken up by being a chaplain. So I'm a Methodist chaplain, the Methodist Church in Ireland, Methodist minister. And as I always tell people in Dublin who tell me, so you're a priest then? I'm like, yeah, I am, but I'm the marrying sort. So that's my primary calling. And I was a youth worker for years. So somewhere deep within my being is the power of what can happen when people are gathered together for good. So if you gather people with purpose, then there's something magic that happens. So to socially connect people is it's a treasure that doesn't get open. And actually, what I worry about at the minute is with social distancing in the Western world, that we will become socially distant. And one of my big challenges in everything that I'm talking about at the minute is trying to get Ireland and anyone else who's listening to say that to be socially distant in a healthy way does not mean that we should become socially distant, because social connection, the psychologists, the sociologists, the religious leaders, there isn't anyone who does not talk about how vital it is to get people together and to positively connect on a social basis. So we provided a space. We provide a space for that in a Good Summit. And we have had people who were sitting together in the Good Summit start a company together. We're told that the next year that these two people met at the first Good Summit, and now they're working on a company together. We have one of the standout moments for me at the end of the first year was walking around at the end of the event. And like I said, we had about 200 people showed up to that, and by the end of the day, a lot of them had gone. Because it was a long day at first. There's maybe 60 or 80 people left, and they just stood still talking to each other in the venue, and then saying to me, I didn't think there was other people out there. And so whenever you've got people who are activists and people who really care and are passionate about the state of the world, and they get together with other activists, then that's where the magic happens. And so to have people turn around and say, I didn't know that these people existed in this city. So those connections have been really inspiring for people. We also, I think it's inspiring for me. So to give people a platform that's different from the one they would usually have. So Liam Cunningham from Game of Thrones, he came last year. And if you watch Game of Thrones, that you're a very busy man, Gareth, and you wouldn't have time for such frivolity. However, as a pastor, I felt it was my duty to watch what the students were watching,
Yeah.
But it's a fierce show, and so you've got Liam Cunningham, very well known Irish actor, brilliant part in that show, and you've got him coming and getting massively passionate about refugees and about what we're doing to immigrants across the world, and about the refugee crisis, and how he believes in positive social transformation. And actually, he's an ambassador for World Vision, the world's biggest children's charity.
Yeah.
And so World Vision Ireland. So he goes on their behalf around the world. And he told us a story about, I want to say Jamal, but I might be wrong, a Syrian refugee who he met when he was on location in Syria. And then Jamal had to escape and go to Germany. And basically, I'm really bad. I'm sorry if I'm getting his name wrong. It might have been Jamar, but he was given a mobile phone by, I think it was by an aid agency, and he used that phone to teach himself English.
Wow.
So you've got those sorts of immigrants and refugees facing that sort of trouble, learning English. Then he had to leave. He had to flee Syria. Ended up in Germany. World Vision were able to stay in contact with them, and there's a beautiful video which Liam showed us last year of Liam just coming up behind him, actually, in Germany. And so he was then in Germany teaching himself German also.
Wow.
So this, the way we think about refugees, it can be so demeaning sometimes. And so Liam, as a Game of Thrones major Hollywood star, is able to come and tell us his personal experience. And then, by the way, they brought him to Ireland. So an Irish charity managed to bring him from Germany for a visit to Ireland. And he and Liam went on to the Late Late Show. So Ireland's biggest kind of entertainment show on a Friday night, and we're given a platform for a Hollywood star to be able to kind of bring those issues to the attention of the general public. So yeah, creating a space for all of those stories and those connections
it's a fascinating time. It's a fascinating time because we see purpose being such a focal point now in our society. Like if you look at, professional footballers in the UK recently, Marcus Rashford stepping up with the lunches for children.
What a result.
Amazing. And what Liam's done as well. And then it's very interesting. Last week, I had a call with a top 500 company in the world with their global leads around purpose, right? We were discussing this. And we were also talking about investments and shareholders. And we were talking about the importance of, shall we say, ethical investments and ethical shareholders. And ethical shareholders are more likely to invest in ethical companies.
Yeah,
and it's a win-win situation, and particularly when you look at the returns on investments, you get a bigger return from companies that have a clear ethical mandate.
Yeah,
So we were kind of talking about our social purpose, as a business, as the WHIST, as a platform, as a purpose-driven entity that wants to do good. And there's a very a great alignment there between the company we're talking to, and there's going to, things will happen along that way. But I'm just saying there's such a shift happening in the world around people taking that responsibility and, giving people that leadership opportunity on the platform that you mentioned, the Good Summit or wherever it may be. And it's also supporting those people who step forward, who have those intentions. And I think we're going to see a change, in the past. For example, the way we're moving and we're navigating so quickly now, it's a case of we used to go on historical factors, well, what have these people done? How have they, it's kind of like you build your, shall you say, a pyramid. But I think in the future, what we're going to see is like, well, what's the intention here, right?
Yeah.
What is it that this person, what is it that this company wants to do, right? And I think that will shape our future in a big, big way.
And I think you started out talking about the shareholders and the investors, so actually the shareholders are going to be key to that conversation, Gary. And I want, so I've been in Trinity for 13 years now, and I've seen a lot of students, I've seen a lot of business students go through. And I'm really struck by the amount of young adults that I meet who want to engage the world of work in a different way. And if you look at the business magazines, you will see that those questions of values and purpose, and I like to add dignity onto that, because I think dignity is a really close second. I don't think you can talk about values in business without talking about a dignity that comes with them. And so you actually have a generation coming into the workforce who want to have meaningful work, who want to be involved in work that lasts and matters, and that, even for a lot of them, is even more primary than money. So people might earn less if they feel that they're actually going to work somewhere where they have a chance to make a positive impact on the world.
I totally agree with you. About 4 years ago, I got an opportunity to go to Budapest in Hungary to partake in the World Peace Summit. It was our event. And I went there. It was for 18 to 24-year-olds. And me being in my 30s, everyone, like I was well over the threshold. But I went there to learn.
You still looked at Gareth.
Yeah, I still looked the part, but I'll take that as a positive. But I went there to learn. And at the time, people were saying, what were you going there for? What was the purpose? And what I really came away from was, I remember you go for a drink afterwards and you sit there and you're talking to people afterwards. And there was this, I couldn't believe it. Like, so everyone was talking about, well, I want to work in this NGO, but I'll do 6 months and then I'll go to another NGO. Now, these are 18 to 24-year-olds.
Yeah.
They weren't talking about, settling down, having a house, getting a mortgage. No, they were talking about impact, right? They were talking about, how do I help people? And this is what really got me kind of excited. I was thinking, this is the future now. This is where we're going. And then recently I had a fantastic opportunity with Lancaster University where we had a hackathon. And we sat there and we had all these solutions. We brought some experts together, some from UN Habitat, from Fujitsu, and from other areas. And we sat there and we gave these tasks to this cohort, third year business school cohort. And they all came back with these fantastic ideas, but it was all impact driven, you know, from a health perspective. They were looking at the refugee crisis. They were looking at, you know, mental health in Russia, for example, which was phenomenal. And it was mental health in Russia, for example, and it was led, there was a young lady there, and she was talking about the suicide rate. And she was talking about these stigmas here, that huge stigmas, right? And I was fascinated to see how she was tackling these issues straight on, you know what I mean? Because her family had been very badly affected by this. And so she was saying that it was mainly prevalent in men's health, you know. So, but she was there tackling these issues, and I was really galvanized. You know, we had a 48-hour kind of session with these, and you know they had to start with a project plan and come up with a business plan, the whole lot. But everything was focused on purpose-driven business, which is just incredible.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You sparked it. When you were talking, you sparked the thought. Like I said, I've been at Trinity for 13 years, and I remember noticing whenever I got to Trinity that Trinity wanted to look after its students really well, certainly in terms of health and mental health, in terms of the care and the provision that was made for students experiencing difficulty. So, for example, we have a brilliant student counselling service, and I remember I was so young and naive, Karen. I remember looking around me thinking, do you know what? People are well catered for here. This curve will just kind of go down. People are well catered for, looked after. Their questions will be answered, and they'll be okay. You can imagine my shock and horror that even with the better provision and best practices in mental health, the scales have just gone up, and more people are needing some sort of assistance, especially in terms of mental health in young adults. And one of the things that I'm really aware of is that the first generation to be raised completely behind screens are now at university age. So they haven't adapted to it, has been their entire world. And that generation is now just beginning university. And I've been really heartened by one of the things I've noticed during lockdown and during the COVID-19 crisis is that my suspicion that whenever you're raised behind screens and you learn to do that well, some of your other social interaction diminishes. Some of how you're learning to interact with the humans around you, something is going to be impacted. And I think it is. But I've been so glad to hear so many schools and so many parents and so many young people and children that I've talked to myself saying, what, how is it for you? How are you handling it? And they're like, I want to go see my mates. I want to go see my mates. And so back to kind of a value base of person to person, people to people, social connection, helping social transformation, keeping those things centrally actually is a massive mental health issue.
It's fascinating you say that, because in the hackathon, one of the mental health apps that won, actually the winner, was around supporting students in Lancaster University. Okay, brilliant. And it was a brilliant idea. Okay, so it was using like a social media platform where if someone was feeling down, they would notice, right, that person isn't feeling great, and what the group would do is say to them, right, let's go bowling on a Friday night. Okay, let's meet up as a group. And this was the concept from a group of 5 or 6 students, and they were recognizing in their cohort, in their university, that's how people feel, because they start to retract, and then and the telltale signs are there. But what they do is they use the platforms that they have to say, hey, listen, rather than singling out the individual, they just put a group thing together to say, right, let's all go and have a game of bowling, and let's put that social aspect into it. But I wanted to talk.
So one of Ireland's most successful apps for young people in that as well, it's called Keep Appy, and we actually have one of the founders, Amy Louise-Carton, coming to speak at the Good Summit this year about that app and what they do in that world.
Brilliant.
Can I just go back to the value thing as well, Gareth? I remember, I'm big into young adults, and I'm big into trying to inspire young adults to be the change that they want to see in the world. You know, I kind of keep thinking I'm 20 years late to the conversation, so I should probably get into it somehow. But I remember sitting in Australia a few years ago, whenever we were talking to some people to try to get the Good Summit Australia off the ground, and he was a C-level executive of an organization that looks after C-level executives. You know, so actually it was, in terms of being in the midst of C-level, he was right there. And he turned around during a coffee in a hotel, and he just said, "Okay, I think I know what you're talking about." And he looked, and he pointed behind, and went, "Okay, so see that carpet there? I don't know, but I'm guessing it looks like, and it comes from, say, Rogers Carpets. I'm not mentioning names. It looks like it's from Rogers Carpets. So Rogers actually is one of the biggest manufacturers of carpets in Australia. You know, there's only one other firm bigger than them, so they're really major. The CEO of Rogers turned around to his staff 18 months ago, 2 years ago, and said, our carpets that we make, and he said, I don't know whether you know this or not, Jules. And I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Keep going. He said, carpets need a lot of petroleum in them. In a manufacturing. And I was like, wow. I said, the CEO turned around and said, you know what? Given the state of the world and given the environmental concerns and given what we know our product needs, he said, we need to create ways to become sustainable. We need to create different ways of doing what we're doing. And he said, because my responsibility is to my shareholders. And if nobody's buying these carpets because they're not sustainable, then the shareholders aren't getting getting our best. And I thought, what a really interesting way to still get to a good ending. You know,
absolutely. and it's interesting because at our Davos event this year, it's very fascinating. When we were coming up to the event, everyone was talking about becoming carbon neutral and, you know, zero net emissions by 2030. Some were being, you know, saying they're being very ambitious. You know, 2030 we'll reach this goal. And it was at our lab, we had the head of Bosch, you know, in Germany. And he's there telling us they're carbon neutral, you know, already. And it was their CEO 5 years ago realized that this isn't even about, you know, the environment per se, because of course it's good for the environment, but this is good for their business, and that the net savings they would make are enormous, like, you know, and the impact it has on the company as well, from the point of view of the value for the employee to know that they work with a company that values the environment, that values the community that they live in. It's an invaluable commodity, and that's where purpose is going. That's where companies are going. You know, I'm a big believer in the future of business will be aligned to societal impact. But I wanted to ask you, this up and coming Good Summit, give us a bit of an overview. Tell us, you've got Mary McAleese, the former president of Ireland, coming along. Who else is going to be there? And how can the audience then engage with the Good Summit? So, tell us a little bit about that.
So this moving everything, or moving most things online, is a big shift for us. And there's some people, you know, first of all, if you go to www.thegoodsummit.com, you'll see the list. Some of those still have to be finally confirmed in our new circumstance. So anybody who's up there has said yes. But, you know, so Mary McAleese is coming. Alan Rusbridger, who is a very famous journalist, and he was editor of the Guardian newspaper whenever the WikiLeaks was broken. And I watched the movie about Julian Assange recently, and I saw Alan Rusbridger being played by the guy who went on to play Doctor Who. I can't remember his name in a minute. And I thought, you know what? Whenever you get played in a movie, then you've got a good part. Really looking forward to having him. He might actually, with the new circumstance, he might be appearing like this with us, but we still hope to maybe get him to Dublin. There's a couple of people that are really, I can't tell you who they are because it's not finally confirmed, but I'm massively excited. Liam Cunningham, we're hoping is coming back. We also are running, you mentioned the hackathon, we're running an event during the Good Summit this year called What the Hack. And so Sophie Benoit and Caitlin Hafer they're two really impressive young female leaders in Ireland in the tech community. And so they're going to run a hack for good during the time of the Good Summit. We've got environmentalist Sonia O'Gorman is a very well-known young Irish activist. Just for you, Garth, the Trinitones are coming back again. So the Trinitones are going to be there. Collie Ennis, Collie Ennis he's a I call him the Irish Spider-Man. He's a legend. He's an incredible guy. Where his daytime job is as a security guard in Trinity College. What takes up most of his life and his passion is the critter shed. So he has a shed in his garden, and I've had the honor of being in it, where he has all these critters, snakes, centipedes, spiders from all over the world, and he uses this for education. And so he goes into schools. He does a lot of work for Trinity College in the environmental sphere, especially. So Trinity actually have sent him around the world looking for spiders with a particular spider venom in terms of, again, positive health and social change. So Collie's going to be back with us. We've got our usual kind of entrepreneurs. You're going to be there. Massively excited that you're going to be back with us. Professor Linda Hogan is the ex-vice provost in Trinity College, and she's an ethicist. So actually, she is going to be spearheading an event on ethics for us as part of the Good Summit this year. That will be probably pre-recorded a couple of days beforehand and go online. And David Blevins, who you mentioned earlier on, he interviewed Bertie Ahern as the very first opening act of the Good Summit a few years ago now. David really gets what we're about in terms of wanting to see positive social change. And so David is going to be back. Okay, without saying too much, I hope that what you see David doing for us this year, we're trying to... What can I say? He is going to help us to connect some young people with some very significant leaders around this island, and have the young people interview some of those leaders, and that will kind of be taking place online.
And for those who don't know, David Blevins is the Ireland correspondent for Sky News.
Sky News,
he's a fantastic guy. We've had a couple of conversations. Great man.
The other thing, by the way, because we can't do the Good Summit Australia this year, because it was meant to be in August, some of what was going to happen in the Good Summit Australia will take place at the same time online. So at the end of October, the Good Summit is truly international this year. So we have the ex-Prime Minister, Malcolm Turnbull, is going to be interviewed as part of the Good Summit this year. And again, there's one or two others that I can't talk about that
we're going to be doing a session on SDGs with children and the youth.
Massively excited that you're doing that.
I'm kind of conscious. I want to try and get possibly some of our partners around the musical side of things to get involved. That would be fantastic, to have their engagement. Someone, from our side, I might, I'll ask Roland perhaps from the foundation to give a bit of a short video on the SDGs, which fantastic. I think would be really great. You know what I'm saying? So we might try and get some of our other counterparts around the world to join in. And contribute as much as we possibly can. We had a question that came in actually, it was from Jenny. She'd asked, as an organization gets larger, there can be a tendency for an institution to dampen the inspiration. How do you keep this from happening? I think this was about 10-15 minutes ago where the question came in. And do you want to answer that first from your perspective?
There's a couple of things from the perspective of the Good Summit. So we've talked about Amr. So Amr at this point isn't involved in the hands-on organizing of the Good Summit. He's a brilliant young serial entrepreneur, and so he'll be there. He's going to be involved. So he's already taken a step kind of further. And actually, just this last week, one of my very kind of trusted friends and allies was saying to me, "It's a few years now. What's your next step?" Because founders syndrome, they write books on this stuff. The reality is I'm not a manager either. I'm not a CEO. I'm kind of interim CEO at the minute. But we need a real one. We need to get
Yeah.
some philanthropists who get what we're doing, and then we get the right people in place to continue growing. So I think the value base stays the same, but the value should stay the same whatever people are heading up the organization. So values front and center. You can see those on our website. I've mentioned several of them, tonight. But positive social transformation, relational, working between people, and networking, creating space for change. I haven't even talked about kind of how we believe in the Good Summit that happens. But if you keep, can do, but I see time is going. But if you keep your values central, then those values are what give fuel to whoever is kind of running the logistics of the organization. And it's a brilliant question, because most organizations climb the steps too easily to institution, and they become institutionalized, and we want to stay in movement.
Yeah, I would be the same, and I think, but to answer that question, for me, it's quite simply trust. You mentioned it there. Like, I think if you give people the space and the opportunity and the trust, a lot of good things can happen. Yeah. And I think, I think I really do believe in that. And I think you've got to embrace people's energy, embrace it, channel it, guide it. And if you know how to do that, and you can do that successfully, you really, and that's what I think, that's where the future is going, because I think everyone has a purpose, everyone has a vision, has a reason, and you shouldn't stifle that. Like, one of the things is, if you're in an organization, you should always want people to do well. Like when I worked in the health service, like I always wanted to see colleagues progress, to rise, and it's the same. I like, the more people that are successful, the better for society. Like, it's a win-win. We all win, So this is my kind of philosophy on this sort of topic, and it's all values driven, all ethical. Just doing the right thing, and doing the right thing is the hard thing. It's not easy doing that thing. That's you cut corners. It's easy to cut corners, but if you stick the course, that's where you get, that's where the gravy is, the real. I mean, that's what I noticed, when I've worked with some great people in the past, and, what I learned is you just keep doing the good stuff, consistently. And if you keep doing the good stuff, then eventually it just rises, So that's my message on that. Listen, we're coming up on the last couple of minutes. Can you just summarize for yourself what you feel the next, 12, 24 months? You talked about the future there, the Good Summit. What do you see? What direction? Where would you like to see yourself in, say, 24 months and in 5 years with the Good Summit? What's the vision? And then summarize, how did the audience engage with you for October's event?
So we want to be inspiring the conversation on positive social transformation. Who's doing what that matters, and how can we connect them and their stories with the wider world, with their communities. So, we probably sense that the Dublin event is always going to be a hub. We all, we're really, we owe a debt to Trinity College, who have embraced this. And so kind of having a major event every year in Trinity, it would be great if we're talking to people about events in America and North America now. So maybe next year there can be a Good Summit in America. I've said that there's things happening in the Middle East. Talked about the Good Summit Australia, which will go ahead. And the reality is, we're probably, after this event, we'll have more resources online, more of our talks, more of what has happened. And if we're trying to create a movement, we're not the center of it. It's the values that are getting out there that are the important bit of it. So positive relationships, authentic working practices, human rights, equality, dignity, diversity. Where are those things happening? And maybe part of the future of the Good Summit is that there are ways in which that conversation can be transported. I would love it if, and you said 24 months, I would love it in 24 months if there's 8 events happening around the world that the local people have said, you know what, we've got a stack of organizations in our city. We want to get them together and spend a day and a half working or talking and helping each other to see a bigger picture. So that's part of the future. It's not about us. It's about the conversation, and it's about the positive social transformation. Big believer in gatherings. That's really where I started. So a big believer in getting people together for good, and whatever ways we can keep inspiring that and encouraging that, then we're just going to be keeping doing it. So please come and, if you're anywhere close to Dublin, which I consider Europe, it's just, you'll be able to jump on a plane by October. So, come and see us, stay in touch. But the website will be updated within the next few weeks with an actual kind of program on how we're doing things differently this year as a result of COVID-19. And come and join us. Put it in your diary now that there's going to be a little kind of mini festival online with things to inspire and create continuous change.
Fantastic. Look, thanks a million for joining us this evening. Anyone who's watching this on record, you can contact Jules at thegoodsummit.com, isn't that right? In Ireland. And just wanted to say thanks for your time this evening. We're grateful for everyone who's joined in this evening. You can join us next week, where we'll have Josh Ludku, who will be online with us talking about Soliviv, which is immersive wellness. And we'll also, the following week after that, we have Deirdre Carberry joining us from our WIS expert group on gender equality and women's empowerment. So that's a day for the diary as well. We've got a couple of interesting guests over the next month. We'll have someone from the WHO and the Global Wellness Institute. So there's a lot happening on our side. We'll have news out. We've just published our Corona perspective, which is supporting UN Habitat, the Vatican Commission, African Union. You can get all that information online. Our partners with the 25+5 cities. We've just released our partners for SDG 3, which of course the Good Summit is there. And in terms of our engagement, I'm looking forward to seeing the Good Summit, as you say, spread over the 12 to 24 months. Bring those conversations to our partners as well, where they can have the opportunity to engage at a city level. So there's a lot of good things happening, positive for the future. And listen, enjoy the rest of your Sunday evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Same time next week, 7 p.m. Join us for WHISTalks, and have a nice evening. Talk to you soon. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Jules.
Thank you.